Right, today I want to tell you how to get plush pop vocals in your songs, how you can do it yourself and get them sitting at the front of it so that everybody can hear what you're saying. I'm going to show you an example of a song that I made recently called Perfect, and here is how it sounds.
You are so perfect, I know it's in your eyes.
Okay, so you can hear in that little section when the vocals come in, they sit right at the front of the mix. They sound plush, they sound lovely, and it's really clear and audible with the things that I'm saying. So I'd like to break it down into three parts. The first being your performance, the second being your recording, and the third being then mixing. So the first thing, performance. One thing that I notice with singers that I work with and that I am constantly thinking about when singing my own stuff is the performance. And I'm talking about things like cadences. How do you enter the word, but also how do you finish the word? A lot of people think about how they enter to sing a phrase, but never how they finish. Are you going to add some vibrato? Are you going to keep the note straight? Are you going to flick the note up at the end? Are you going to drop down? There's lots of ways that you can end a note. There's lots of ways you can start a note. And how you deliver the note generally, are you going to be performing staccato? So are they going to be short, tight notes? Are they going to be really long and fluid? So legato. So you really want to think about, how am I wanting to deliver this line? And what is going to be the best performance to serve the lyrics that I'm singing? And so, for example, if I listen to what I just showed you here.
You are so perfect, I know it's in your eyes.
You can hear that I'm singing very softly because I wanted the intimacy, and I want to sound like I'm in the ear of the listener. So my performance, I wanted to make sure that that's what happened. So I was singing softly and I was singing very delicately as I can be. I'm not like the best singer, but I know enough technically to perform the way that I want. So that's the first thing to think about, is your performance, right? Really get it in there, pay attention to it. And actually, by getting a good performance, you are more than halfway to a plush pop vocal. That's all they're doing. They're just singing it well, all right? The second thing is recording. So I recorded on my microphone over here. It's a Sontronics Aria. It's quite an expensive microphone, that one. Obviously, this is my job, so I create a lot of music with a lot of artists, so I need a really good microphone. But in short, it's a condenser microphone. A condenser microphone is going to pick up all the intricacies of your vocal. This one that I'm using here, this is a dynamic mic, so this is a bit more rough and ready and can be sort of knocked about. You can shout into it and it can withstand a lot. And if I have any mouth noises, you're not going to hear it, okay? So you want to think about using a condenser microphone, especially if you want lots of detail in your vocal, which again, you probably do if you want a plush pop vocal. And when singing, you want to be about, I say, about 4 fingers width, maybe a whole hand's width, a palm's width, essentially, away from the microphone so that you're not too close. But it depends on what you're singing. So if you want to get a little more intimate, you might get a little closer on the mic so that you are right in the ears of the person. If you want something a little bit more bold and loud, you might stand a bit further away. There's something called the proximity effect when you're singing into a mic. As you get a bit closer, you get a lot more of the bassy tones in your voice. This is what like voiceover artists do for that big Hollywood movie trailer sound. But if you want something that cuts through the mix a little bit more, something that's a bit more aggressive, then you would stand a bit further back so that you're not putting too much pressure into the actual mic itself. If you're about 6 inches away, let's say, that gives you plenty of leeway to move around so you can feel the performance, and it's not going to affect too much the recording quality. Now, if you pair the performance of your vocal with that recording kind of format, right? So a palm's width away and standing the distance that you want from the mic to get the performance that you want, you're already going to be in a really, really good spot. Okay, so then what we do is we then move into the mixing, so the fun bit. So what we then do here, and this is all the stuff that happens in the DAW, so I'm using Logic Pro here. Now, I process my vocals in 2 stages. So you can see here, I've got my top vocal and I've got my bottom one. This top one is the original performance that I did. So if I just unmute that and solo it, this is where I choose all my comps. And if you don't know what a comp is where I take a bunch of recordings here and I choose the best bits. You can see that I'm choosing, take 23 from here, take 52 from there. I really did a lot of takes to get this right. Over here, you can see that we've got take 13 at the bottom. We're using take 20 for this part here, and so on and so forth. And so I'm trying to create a perfect picture with the canvas that is provided to me, which in this case is the vocals that I sang. So I comp my vocals, pick the best bits because I want this to be the best performance that I can get. Once I've done that, I then go through and add a few plugins. So here is the vocal dry, the first part that you heard just before.
You are so perfect. I know it's in your eyes.
Okay, so it's okay. You can hear that there's a couple of little wrong notes here and there, but that's fine. For me, the performance of the vocal was more important than the pitch because I can correct pitch later. I can't correct emotion and I can't correct performance or delivery, right? So that is super important. So I would rather sing something slightly out of key, but sing it in a really emotional way, if that's what I'm looking for, rather than sing it technically perfect and have no emotion. It just doesn't sound good. So use the tools you got available to you. So obviously the first thing I did was add some auto-tune, and I'm just using Antares here. And I've got a retune speed of 16, so pretty fast, but the flex tune is 56. So this is giving it this is humanizing it again. And then I've got my tracking here up to 25. And my key is F major. And this is what it's doing.
You are so perfect. I know it's in your eyes.
Cool. So sounding great so far. I think I might have added a case of Melodyne as well, which I've got here. So for whatever reason, Melodyne isn't showing up. I might have gotten rid of it. This was a buggy project. I had to resave everything, so I think I might have lost some data. But I would also tune with Melodyne, where I manually grab the notes and even them out. That coupled with the auto-tune, I then add RVox, and this is like, I kind of view it as though I'm recording into this. So imagine I'm recording in some outboard gear. This just gives me a general loudness to the vocal and just helps smoothen out any inconsistencies. You can see here already that we have a little bit of sound difference here, but also here as well. It's quite a bit louder than quieter here. The RVox plugin here just helps to smoothen this performance out. And so this is what it's doing.
You are so perfect. I know it's in.
So you can see we're only getting a bit, -1, -2, sort of gain reduction there. It kicks in a bit more here.
You are the seasons.
Obviously, it's a much louder bit, more expressive. So again, we're just helping to tame the volume. So that's the next thing I do. I then add just a bit of NS1. This is a noise suppressor. This gets rid of any background noise. I have it very light. This is hands down one of the best plugins you can buy if you're recording vocals at home. So I definitely encourage it. It just gets rid of any and all background noise in between takes. So
you are so perfect. I know it.
For example, in between that perfect,
I know.
you can hear there's a bit of noise there.
Fact. I know.
Turn it on.
Fact. I know.
And it disappears. And this is on a small setting as well, a low setting. I then go and add my general sort of recording chain, and I just have the virtual channel here from Slate. This is just like recording into like a desk, and sounds good. I like it. I don't really touch it, to be honest, just leave it as it is. And then I go to my EQ here. I take away some bottom end, so I do a low cut. I then go up to about 380 hertz here, and I pull down about 1.6 dB. I go to 350 because there was a bit of boxiness there and took away 3 decibels. Again, I'm just doing sort of a mid-range, sort of a mid-broad EQ. I'm not going for finite stuff here. I go to 2.14 kilohertz and I just reduce a little bit of honk there. So for me, I have a bit of a like a nasally sound at that register, that kind of frequency in my voice. So I just dock a bit of that. The Q setting on this is way slimmer because I'm being a little bit more precise here. And then I add just some general high-end sparkle above 15K there, just adding 2. I then also added the compressor, and I've got a ratio of 2, so it's quite minimal. I've got a fast attack, so I'm really attacking any peaks. So that would be relevant for, say, this section here, where I have that bigger peak. And the release, I'm doing a very modest, I should say, sorry, not moderate, modest 0.3 seconds release. And then just a little bit of a de-esser here, just to tame those S's. And that's how this sounds.
You are so perfect. I know it's in.
And again, without.
You are so perfect.
So already you can hear that by adding this EQ, this compression, and this de-esser, I'm already very close to the final sound of my vocal. I then finished off because I was just liking how this sounds anyway. I then added my CLA 2A, and this is based off the LA 2A compressor. I basically just open it up and leave it as is, and then just adjust my peak reduction so that I'm getting whatever I'm feeling for that song. So in this case,
you are so perfect. I know it's in your eyes.
You can see it's very minimal, getting down to -2 there. It's going to be a lot more aggressive around here.
You are the sea.
At -3. And then as I go a bit further into the song and get louder, you'll see
you are so perfect.
It's even more aggressive there. Now, it sounds like I'm really overly compressing the vocal, and at parts I am, but you got to think that this is going to be a dense pop mix. You want the vocals to be clean and sitting above everything at all times. So this is just what I do for my vocals on almost every song. This is the standard chain, and this is my stage 1. I then bounce that out, and you can see I then end up with a vocal that looks like this here. And then this is where I add some additional processing if I feel like it needs it, which in this case I did. So I added another case of autotune here. This really tidied up just any loose ends, any things I might have missed, or any things the previous autotune might have missed, but still sounding very natural. I'd rather sort of multi-stack my plugins so that every single one does a little bit, as opposed to one doing a whole bunch of work. I then added Neutron, and here I've got 3 of the sort of plugins in Neutron doing some work here. So the first one is the EQ, just a low cut here, a high pass, also known as, up to about 140, and then I just take away some additional boxiness at around 470. I then went to my compressor and I did a little bit of multi-band compression here. So again, I'm just smoothing out every single band here. To me, this is where you can get a really nice, consistent sound across your vocal in everything, right? When you compress the different frequencies, to me, they require different things. So why not treat them differently? And I did the same thing with the exciter here, just a little bit at the bottom and then just a little bit more brightness up at the top here. So if I show you just what's going on with the Neutron plugin here, so let me just turn it off.
You are so perfect.
And now on.
You are so perfect.
You can now hear that that kind of pop sparkle coming through. It's really controlled, really tight. Just to take away any final peaks, excuse me, I add the L1 limiter. And so if there's any sort of stray, so for example, you can see that there's a little bit of a peak still just here. If there's any strays like that, I use this just to catch it. I wonder if that one's actually catching it.
Eyes.
No, that one's not catching it, but I think it's probably over here. You can see that there's a nice peak just there.
You are so perfect.
There you go. On that eye there, you see it just caught it a little bit, just taking away those little spikes is all. So that's barely doing anything. I then add a final case of EQ here. And again, this is just a low pass. When you start adding saturation and limiting and things like that, you actually introduce new harmonics and new frequencies, obviously, especially in the bottom end. So again, I just add another EQ just to clean up any frequencies that had been added that I don't want. And then I actually added a more creative effect here. And at one point in the song, I adjust the formants, which you can see. Let's have a look here. Yeah, there it is. You can see on this particular verse here, I adjust the formant so it's going down. This is more of a creative effect.
You are so perfect. I know it's in your eyes.
And that's how I finish the song, like that. So that was cool, a bit more creative. What I then do is I then run, so essentially this is the second stage. This is my vocal done. I like to get it sounding as wonderful as possible, dry.
You are so perfect. I know it's in your eyes.
We then move on to EQs and, reverbs and delays. So I do that with my bus channels here. You can see I've got 3. So if I go to my first one here, you can see that I've just got this little tape delay here. And if I solo this, we should be able to hear it. Let's try. No, you can't hear it. And I'll tell you why, because it's turned down. I think there might be a point later on where I turn it up. Here. Oh, yes. So there it is. Yeah. So I completely minimize it and turn it down in this first part because I wanted that really tight, intimate vocal. But you can see when I come into the second part of my verse here that I've increased the gain again. So it should be back in.
You are the seasons blooming like the start of spring.
So it's just adding a bit of texture. I also added bus 15 here. I've got some long verb. And again, you can see on this channel down here, I do the same thing. I cut it out in the first part and then it kind of comes back in so that when I finish singing, you get this really long tail. And I'll show you that here.
You are the start of spring.
Hear that? It's echoing into the distance. Because the vocal has a lot of space in between, I really wanted that spacey effect. And then bus 16 here, this is like my little secret super weapon. And a super weapon for any pop vocal is a little bit of parallel compression. And I use Supercharger GT for this from Native Instruments. It does a great job. If I just solo that, you should hear it.
You are so perfect. I know it's
like that. When you do parallel compression, you essentially just want to slam the life out of the vocal. So you can hear that vocal is incredibly slammed. Let me turn it up.
You are so perfect. I know.
It's almost too much. But then what you do is you blend it in. So I found that -27 was about right for me. And so what that does is you're kind of blending in the effect to your main vocal. And if there are any parts of your vocal where you kind of go a little quieter, it will bring the volume up. So for example, let's listen to where it drops out here. First with the parallel compression.
You are so perfect. I know.
So take a listen to that perfect. Let me then take away the parallel compression.
You are so perfect. I know.
It's really subtle, but if you listen to the effect,
Perfect.
and then I'll turn it back on,
Perfect.
it just raises the volume a little bit more, makes it a little bit more present. It's really subtle, but it does a lot for the overall sound of the vocal. And so that is how I take my vocal from recording it all the way to a really nice plush pop sound. Try and apply it to your songs. If you found this video helpful, let me know down in the comments. Subscribe if you want more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.